African-American voters, you're going to turn off certain white voters. And you need them both. So step away from race.
You know, Tom, it's interesting. Obviously, if you go on Twitter, a lot of lifelong Democrats don't want to hear from the likes of you and me talking about the party darting too far left. And I mean, why should they hear from us? They did so well in 2016 against Donald Trump. But you look at the first debate, and it doesn't look like Biden was damaged too much. It looks like, as these polls keep rolling out, that the clear winner right now seems to be Elizabeth Warren as far as making a break. What to the front of the pack? What does that mean? What do you see in the poll results? Not only who's at the top, but also the 15 or so who are buried below 2%.
One of the things I think is really interesting is to think about how these polls would have shaken out if there had only been 7, 8 candidates instead of this, complete hot mess of 22 candidates, including a lot of vanity candidates. You know, you kind of wonder if there had only been 7 or 8 choices, where would that other 10 or 12% that's, down there in the ones and twos, where would that vote have gone? Would it have given more of a shot to somebody like Cory Booker or Amy Klobuchar or Michael Bennet or something? Instead, people have been able to kind of splatter their votes out over 22 candidates. So, of course, you're going to get 2 or 3 at the top, and then everybody else in onesies and twosies at the bottom. So I think this is what, Joe's point about nobody wanted to hear from us former Republicans. Well, this is the thing we were warning about early on. We had 17 candidates, and look what happened to us. That, even though Trump won, I mean, it was really the worst candidate coming out of it. And I think the other thing that comes out of this is how much Biden wasn't dented. I mean, I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, that's really the big news, isn't it?
Yeah. I think Donnie's absolutely right. I mean, for the Democrats to push this primary onto the turf of race, I think, again, looking at it as an outsider, is insane. It's exactly what the Republicans would hope they would do, because that plays right onto Donald Trump's natural home turf.
So Fox News poll of South Carolina Democrats shows the former vice president with a big lead in the First in the South primary. 35% say they would vote for Biden, a 21-point lead over Senator Bernie Sanders, who gets 14%. Senator Kamala Harris is in third with 12%, with Senator Elizabeth Warren back at 5%, Senator Cory Booker with 3%, and Mayor Pete Judge at 2. Like the NBC national poll, Biden's advantage here is built on a strong show of support from the state's African-American voters, among whom he attracts 41% of the vote, compared to receiving just 25% among white Democrats.
So let's just stop there, and we can show you another chart, but we're going to stay here because the other chart shows the same thing. Biden does well with older voters. So, Rev, let's look at 2 charts. I'm going to keep this one up first. And here you have, we were talking about it before, Elizabeth Warren sitting at 2% among black voters in South Carolina. Mayor Pete only sitting at 1% in South Carolina. Now, if you will, switch over, Alex, to the overall South Carolina number. And when you switch over to the overall South Carolina number, you see actually that there's a good reason that Mayor Pete is only sitting at 2%, and it's in large part because of the vote. Elizabeth Warren drops from 19% in the national polls to 5% in South Carolina. And, Rev, this is what we've been saying for some time. Everybody focuses on Iowa and New Hampshire, and my gosh, they are such important early contests. But really, the look of the Democratic primary, the character of the Democratic primary, Rev, let's go to Rev, doesn't start until we get those results in from South Carolina and we see who's going to do well on Super Tuesday and who's going to do well in the Midwest, who's going to do well in the Northeast, who's going to do well where the states are more diverse and more represent the overall population.
No doubt about it. And if you are discounted in South Carolina or do very poorly, you will not probably survive to see the rest, because you won't have the money and you really won't have the kind of momentum. I think what is interesting about this is, again, many people that the progressive wing of the party do not understand. They're not talking about most of the African American community who have different views that could be conservative, small c, like you say, in real life things, and who relate to people. The other thing that I think that people forget when they talk about Joe Biden is I agree with Donnie that Donald Trump won playing the race card, but he also played that he was going to undo everything President Obama did. We must undo what Obama did. Well, undoing Obama is undoing Obama-Biden. So a lot of African Americans are saying, this is my vote to say I am with Obama-Biden in the things that Donald Trump is trying to undo. And Biden gets a lot of support because of that. He was the co-pilot of the years that Mr. Trump is now trying to displace. So it's going to take more than one or two bad nights at a debate for people to look at Joe Biden as separate from the last 10 years. They weren't around 50 years ago with busing. It's a big issue, an important issue, but they remember in real life their own experiences over the last 10 years that is trying to be displaced by this president. And Joe Biden was part of that and really fought hard in there. I was in the rooms. I disagreed with Joe Biden in the 90s, but Joe Biden was an ardent fighter in the rooms for what Barack Obama did with Affordable Care Act and criminal justice reform. There's no question about it.
So, Heidi, there's obviously a ton of road ahead of us still. But Joe Biden has taken a few hits now, right when his campaign rolled out with the question of women who they said he made them feel uncomfortable. The hits on busing, the hit during the debate where it wasn't just Kamala Harris going after him, it was his general performance was perceived as not good. And he's still sitting at pretty solid numbers if you go state by state and then in this national poll as well. I guess the question is, Joe Biden is such a known commodity. What changes the dynamic of the race? Of course, it will change a million times between now and Iowa, but what changes the way people feel about Joe Biden?
He does look pretty Teflon right now, but this is so early. And there is another paradigm here, which was Hillary Clinton in 2007, when she had the majority of the black vote behind her. And later in the race, when it looked like Obama could actually get other voters to vote for him and he could be, quote unquote, electable, that block moved en masse. Now, I'm not saying that that is going to happen here because every election is different. And the Rev says, like you say, he's very tightly aligned now with the Obama legacy. But at the same time, I bring you back to that number that you mentioned, Willie, which is that only 12% have made up their minds. So he's taken some punches. He's got some more punches. They're going to be coming in this next debate. OK, he got hit on busing. He got hit on abortion. And look to the next debate for the issue to be, if he's paired with Elizabeth Warren, for instance, his vote on bankruptcy reform. Look for him taking punches on his Iraq war vote. And I do think, despite the fact that he's remained pretty resilient, how he responds in this second debate is going to be critical, because one debate performance that had him look like he was a little bit off his game, a little bit off his ground, is okay. Two, I think, would be more problematic.
Oh, I completely agree with that. Joe Biden has to stand and deliver in the next debate. I will say this week, of all the numbers I've seen, everything's fluid. You can compare polls this time in the 2007 cycle, the 2011, this time in 2011, this time obviously in 2015.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of numbers that move, but I will tell you there are two numbers right now that are the most likely to remain constant and will have a dramatic impact on this race unless the two candidates figure out how to get more black Democratic voters on their side. And those are Mayor Pete's numbers among black voters and Elizabeth Warren's numbers among black voters. We've talked about what a great race she has run so far, that even when she was down in the polls, she was doing everything right. She was doing the blocking and the tackling right. Unless she figures out how to make a more personal connection, a more emotional connection to black voters, not only in South Carolina, but also across America, her road to the White House becomes much more difficult. So those are the two numbers out of all of these polls to look at. And we've seen what Mayor Pete tried to do yesterday. We'll see if that closes, if that helps him out. Elizabeth Warren needs to do the same thing.
Yeah, and the two candidates Joe Biden needs to worry about are Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris, both women, but they're steady and strong.